I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. In this video, I'm going to show you how to kind of finish off your bead, make sure you've gotten the full shape, get the bottom all cleaned up, and get ready for the next steps when you're using your Queen Puabi Die Formers. If you haven't gotten yours yet, please go to jewelryarts.com. So you see how I've trimmed it. I've trimmed it as close as I could with the scissors. But even though, I mean, obviously you don't want to like cut into the shape. You see how there can be like that little edge sticking out just a little. So usually what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a file, I'm going to file that a little bit so that it's flush, and then I'll put it on the sandpaper. So normally I'm just going to, you know, like I would do anything, hold it like this, you know, and run that right along that edge. You see what I mean? That little guy right there. Now, if you sanded it flat, that would eventually disappear, but I think it's a little quicker to file that away a little bit and then sand it flush. But either way will get you there in the end. Because when you look at this closely, it's like a little wing. You know, it's that last little remnant, you know what I mean, sticking out on the side. You know, and also a little tip, whenever you're filing some of this, brace yourself on the table. You do it up in the air and you're fighting against yourself the whole time. I don't like to do that. I mean, you could use a smaller file if you want, but usually I want something relatively wide so that it doesn't slide off as easily. Try not to file your finger too much, but you know, that's just an occupational hazard. Okay, maybe I'll do a little bit more, but you see what I mean, right? How that edge is just coming off of there. And then what you're gonna do, put it on a piece of sandpaper and do a little sanding. And the same rules apply. You wanna do like little circles or little figure eights. If you just go back and forth and you do that with too much force, you'll end up with a slant. I'm sure we've all had that shitty experience with a bezel or something where you're just like, I'm gonna, and then you realize, you know what I mean, on one of the strokes you press more. So you just wanna sort of, isn't that a lovely noise? Everyone out there right now is going, ah, sorry. You could put a little water on here, that would reduce the sound, but I hate getting dirty puddles on my bench, so I usually don't. I'll just do a tiny bit, around and around, back and forth until it's nice and flush. We'll do the rest of that off camera, so the noise, because poor Alexis is like, eh! So I'll sand it a little bit more, and then we'll do a close-up. So now that the horrible noise has stopped, everyone's like, oh God. You can see, you see how it's in there? It's like basically level with the top. I also annealed it. While you weren't here, I annealed it. Because if there's nothing sticking up above or like over to the side, that way there's nothing holding it back at all. Like we'll get our last final squish down in there. So where's my positive? Here it is. Okay, so you put this in place, slide your fingers down. Okay, give it a smack or two. One thing you'll notice too, when the shape is fully done, it tends to come out with the positive. I mean, it's not something you have to like worry about, but I've noticed that a lot of times it forms it completely and it just comes out like, ta-da!
Beautiful.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, these dies are all designed so that the shape is full and complete, about a ½ millimeter below the top surface here. In other words, the die is sunk down in a little so that you have room to sand.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because you know how like you make a bezel, you never make it absolutely, because you always need to, after you few or whatever, you know, there's always a little bit of cleanup. So let me pop it back in there and let's take a look. You see that? That looks about right. Like I could sand that a hair more, you know. The thing of it is also, you can't do it wrong. As long as your two halves are the same, they could be a little poofier or a little less poofy, because sometimes you may have a reason where like you like the shape, but you're like, actually, I don't want it at full poof. I want it a little lower. As long as your two halves match each other, that's all you're looking for, so it doesn't matter. But just so you know, if it's down in there a little bit, that's how it's designed. Like it's not wrong.
Beautiful.
But essentially, once you do that, That's it. It's over, you know? And usually when I'm doing these, by the way, because you know how like you're annealing, you're letting it cool, whatever, I'm usually doing multiples at once so that I'm not waiting for anything because I'm impatient. I don't want to wait. So in other words, while one's, you know, I've annealed and it's cooling off, I'm smacking the other one. You kind of just get like an assembly line going. But that is it. That is all to it. It's really very simple. As long as you don't go crazy and hammer too fast and you make sure and flatten it in between, you're really not going to have any problems.